of the biggest problems that we all face nowadays is that life is busy. As a guitar player, this causes you a huge problem when you want to try and find time to practice. Now, it doesn't matter if you're a gigging professional touring musician or a self-taught hobbying guitar player that just wants to play for fun. Finding the time to fit all of this in can be difficult. Something that's causing a lot of problems for guitar players though is that when they think they're practicing, they're actually wasting time. I see a lot of people that are putting the hours in, but when the hours go by, they're still not making progress. I'll also speak to a lot of people that will say, well, I haven't had the time because of my job, my family, had to take the dog for a walk. Whatever it is, it always seems like that there's something else to do. Now in this video I want to talk to you about a couple of things. One, how to be really good with your time so that you can actually get the practice in. But most importantly, how to make the practice that you can do be really effective so that you get results. Even with a busy career and a family to contend with, if you practice the right things in the right order, you can get results even practicing for only 30 minutes a day. So let's get looking right into the 20 most common problems that modern guitar players are facing and how to fix them. Just quickly before we get into this, I have created a free course called the Cutting Edge Guitar Blueprint, which basically structures out a lot of the things that we're going to talk about in this video here today. It gives you clear things to work on, and not only that, I'll also help keep you accountable, which is a problem that we're going to talk about later in this video, via email so that you can get actually into the lessons and get results. Okay, so point number one is unfocused practice. Most guitar players that I've met, they're not working on things with structure, no logic, and that's basically causing them all sorts of problems. So when your time is limited anyway around all of the things that could distract you from playing, your family and your job and all the rest of it, when you're going to pick up your guitar and you've got no clear plan as to what you're going to work on to achieve your goal, this just means that you're on the treadmill, you're not going anywhere every time that you pick up your guitar. This is how I tell my students to start working on their practice, is you've got to focus on the end goal. When you focus on the end goal, your vision of where you want to take your guitar playing, you can then reverse engineer all of the stuff that you need to do to get to where you want to be. So let's take my own playing as an example that we can talk about in this video, and then I'll show you how I reverse engineered what it is that I wanted to do to get better. So I knew that I wanted to be able to play like Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, Yngwie Malmsteen, those kind of guys. When you look at the things that really makes up their guitar playing, probably the first thing that all young guitar players get blown away with those kind of players is that they can play really fast. So clearly that showed me that I needed to work on my technique. I was going to have great technique. The other thing is that these kind of guitar players, they know what they're doing. It's not just a case of they're flailing around hitting the random notes and all of that stuff. They actually know what's going on the guitar. They're studied and they can hit all of the right notes and all of that stuff. So that means not only did you need to know have a good sense of musical theory, but also as well you needed to know where all of that lived on the guitar, which is what I boil down to fretboard knowledge. Once you know where all the scales are and you know where all of the musical devices that these players are going to be using, and then you've got a technical facility that allows you to play fast, that means nothing if you can't turn it into music. So finally, you want to turn that into a working musical vocabulary. For example, here is some vocabulary that is typical of the kind of player that I like to listen to. Okay, so although this kind of vocabulary might not be for everybody, what I wanted to do here is break down all of the elements that have gone into me being able to play this so you can understand how I've unpacked what it was that I needed to work on. So what you can see on the tab is the front part of this run. And what's happening here is I'm playing through the A Dorian mode, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to play each note starting from an E. So I'm going E, F sharp, G, back down to the E. So it's what I would call a doubled up sextuplet pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we're going to go to the next string. And then we're going to take this all through the different shapes of that scale, like this. Now that basically takes us to the end of this line. Now we've got an exit. So already in this, what you can see is that the kind of run that I'm playing here has already told me what I need to know in terms of the fretboard knowledge. I need to know the Dorian mode. I need to know the shapes of the scale. Okay, so you need to know that, and then also as well, you need to have the technical facility to be able to play these fast sextuplets. If I move on to the exit point, the exit comes out like this. Now as I'm finishing that on the E, that would be the 5th of my A if I'm playing this over an A minor or an A kind of power chord. But what I'm actually doing here, I'm moving down an A minor 7 arpeggio and then a portion of the scale again, and then here extracting triads that live within the scale. So what you've got is a lick or a run or a line, whichever way you want to look at it, which is incredibly complex in terms of the fretboard knowledge, the technique, and then of course that final execution. Now I'm not saying that this is what you would want to play, but in my own style, you're looking at the kind of players and what they are doing, and then it tells you all of the things you need to know in terms of your scales and your technique and what you need to work on and all of that. So at this point, what you can then do is throw away loads of other elements of guitar playing so that you're not wasting time working on things that don't matter to you musically. That leads me neatly on to point number 2, which is wasting time practicing things that don't matter to you. When you're watching things like YouTube, you're going to come across elements like jazz changes, bluesy bending, rhythm guitar, sight reading, classical, rock, fusion, and all of these other things. What you need to decide for yourself is what it is that you want to be able to play, and then look at the things that are inside that you need to work on. If you're only going to be playing for half an hour a day to an hour a day, maybe even sometimes that's only 4 times a week or whatever it is that you're going to be able to fit in. If you zone in on exactly what you need to do to achieve your goals, it becomes much more realistic to be able to hit it. Point number 3, guitar players are absolutely criminal at practicing what they already know. Now, in order to move forward, what you need to work on are the things that are going to get you to be better. And most of the time, they're the things that guitar players don't want to work on. Most people will need to do at this point is they've got to change their mindset. Their mindset is, I want to be able to play like Jimi Hendrix or Joe Satriani or Dave Grohl, whoever the guitar player it is that they've picked that they want to be able to play like. But what they're going to do is they're going to say, I just want to learn to play songs because I only have 20 minutes a day to play and I just want to do the fun stuff. Well, actually, if you divide your time up and go, I'm going to have 10 minutes of playing something that I already know and 10 minutes of working on something that moves me forward, every day that you pick up your guitar, you'll start making progress. Point number 4 is that most guitar players have no clear goals whatsoever when they're setting out to go on their practice. So what I'm showing you here on the screen is a PDF of a practice plan that I set for myself that I've also shared with a whole host of my students, okay? So what you're looking at here, technique elements, fretboard knowledge elements, performance, which is going to be, so let's break this down. Technique will be things like working on legato, alternate picking, sweep picking, that sort of thing. Fretboard knowledge will be scales, for example in here, play either with a metronome or practice track, and what we're looking at is running the scales and the arpeggios that you need in order to play the music that you want to play. And then finally, performance elements, okay? So practicing with a backing track, whether that is playing a piece or improvising or jamming. So performance element 1 might be a piece that you've been working on. Performance element 2 might be some improvisation over a jam track that you've been looking on, or performance element 3, again, it could be a piece that you're trying to learn or something that you can already play that you want to play a few times round. And the way that I have divided up the time for all of these different elements that I've put in here, it makes a grand total of 60 minutes. So now when I go to practice, I don't have to think, what am I going to work on? How am I going to get some results? Well, I'm just practicing this 60-minute routine, which is going to be highly beneficial. And also something on the lines of this is that when you're practicing for, say, an hour a day, which most people can probably find if they were honest with themselves, what they might not be able to find is a straight hour all the way through from, say, like 7 o'clock to 8 p.m. of an evening. But there are 3 points in a day where you could probably play for 20 minutes. There might even be all of these various holes where you could practice for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. A lot of the sections that I've put into my practice plan here require me to work on them for 10 minutes or 5 minutes at a time. So many people approach their practice wrong because they're thinking, oh, I don't have all of this time. Well, actually, most people have 10 minutes when their dinner's cooking. Most people will have 5 minutes when they're sitting around waiting for that next Zoom call when they're at work. There's loads and loads of different times throughout a day where you can manage to fit these points in, again, if you're organised and structured. Point number 5 is a very simple one, and it's just a part of the way that our lives look these days, is that everybody is too overwhelmed by information overload. So you're a guitar player, you're very, very keen to find out how to play your favourite songs or your favourite licks by your favourite players, and you're thinking about what scale should I know and what theory should I know. It's almost like we live in an information age where you can find the answers to everything, but the problem with the internet, places like YouTube and things like, Google search, even ChatGPT these days, if you are not armed with the information of what are the right things to ask, you're still going to be lost. An advanced student who's been playing the guitar for a long time that knows they want to get better at playing over altered dominant chords might do a very valuable search for how to develop vocabulary with the altered scale. The problem with something like that is you're only going to ask those kind of questions if you're already a very, very informed player. So if you're a beginner or an intermediate player and you don't know what you need to do to get better, your searches are going to return you bad results because you're probably asking the wrong questions. What that leads to, of course, is that a lot of people out there are looking for actual guidance. Now, as I talked about earlier in this video, if you are new to my channel and new to me, you might want to go and grab my free course as an entry and gateway into all of the things that I do. If you've been watching me for a while and you've already been through the free course and you're looking for more, right now you can also get a massive discount on my premium course library. You can also grab a copy of my books. They are digital or they're available on Amazon. Or if you want the personalized approach, you can see if I have any lesson availability and see about taking one-to-one lessons with me. All of the links are in the description. Number 6 is a nice, easy, short one. And this is a bit of a fallacy that a lot of people suffer from, is their thinking is, oh, I'm too busy Monday to Friday because I've got my job and my kids and all the rest of it to work around. But on a Saturday and a Sunday, I've got a couple of hours spare, so I'll just practice there. Unfortunately, practice marathons don't work as well on the guitar as doing regular daily practice. So if you play for sort of 5-6 hours on a weekend, you'd actually be better off for playing an hour a day throughout the week. So I really do suggest that you try to get organised and structured with your time to find daily inputs. Number 7, for some reason a lot of guitar players hate playing with a metronome. That is doing them a lot of damage because playing with a metronome, keeping you in time, is a really, really good and important way to play. You don't want to just work on your scales and playing licks and just sitting there noodling with the guitar. You want to play along with something that is keeping you in time, that keeps you disciplined so that you can play along with a real world band type feel. Now, if you really hate the metronome, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw your attention to a different way to practice that I think is an absolutely wonderful practice tool. What you can see on my screen right now is called iReal Pro. And what you can do with this, you can type in a chord progression like the one that I've got here, and you can set the speed so you can change the speed that you're playing along. You've also got an actual speed trainer that's built into this, so it says practice tempo. So as you're playing through a chord progression, it will just get faster and slower as you're going along. The chords you just type in, and then over here you can choose a whole range of different styles of music to play along to. So the backing track that I've put on right now is like a jazz bossa nova thing. So let's have a listen to this. Now, why this is really useful is if you want to be working on something like practicing scales, you might hate playing along to the tick-tock of a metronome, but working along to a backing track like this might be right up your alley. So if I now want to practice, I personally find practicing scales and things like that with iReal Pro is a much more fun way to do it. Now, I just want to say that I have absolutely no affiliation with iReal Pro whatsoever. This is just a tool that I like and that I highly recommend, so there's no links for that in my descriptions. Another tool that's really good for that is called Guitar Pro. Guitar Pro is a piece of software that will have your tabs up, and then from the tabs you can loop them and play along to things. So let's show you some Guitar Pro as well. Okay, so what you see on the screen in front of you right now is a tab that I've made with Guitar Pro. This is just an exercise that I came up with for myself, actually, playing over a Brett Garsed style backing track that I really liked here on YouTube. And what I've done in the tab is I've got a line that I've composed that can be played over the backing track. Now, if I just click play on it, so what you're seeing there is you've got the cursor and it highlights what it's playing and all the rest of it. But what you can do is you can highlight sections and you can loop them, you can change the speed on it and play along with it and all of that sort of stuff as a kind of like a practice partner. Now, with all of my courses and premium products and all of that stuff that I do at Cutting Edge Guitar, I always include the Guitar Pro files because I think that they're a really good practice tool. So Guitar Pro is another piece of software that would be really good for you to get. Okay, point number 8 sort of ties into what I was just talking about there with playing along with things like iReal Pro and Guitar Pro and everything anyway, is a lot of guitar players ignore working on their technique for various reasons. One of them, they find practicing exercises boring. 2, another thing that they think about with all of this is that if you just practice exercises, you're going to become an unmusical shredder. Well, for one thing, if you're really into playing shred guitar and you like listening to people that have a high level of virtuosic ability and skill, if you're not working on your technique, you're never going to be able to play the music that you like. It's as simple as that. Secondarily, over my career as a guitar teacher, I've been teaching guitar since I was 17 years old. I'm now 37. So 20 years of guitar teaching. I've met hundreds, if not thousands, of, dare I say, older guys, sort of like in their 50s and above, that will always say stuff like, I want to play like Clapton, I want to play like Gilmour, I want to play like Jimmy Page, I don't want to work on technique because I don't want to be shredding. And that's absolutely fine. I love classic rock and blues and things like that. But also those same guys generally would say to me, I'm struggling to play this, it's too fast. So working on technique doesn't always have to be crazy shred guitar ideas. You could be just working on basic pentatonic fragments like this. And as I'm playing that there, I'm not even playing it fast, but by looping it up and getting that sort of thing down, I am working on and practicing my technique. Also as well, if you're just a complete beginner guitar player and all you want to do is play cowboy chords, the technical skill of going from, say, a C chord to a G chord and getting your changes down and getting your strumming, it's still technique. So technique means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but don't overlook it. Make sure that your actual physical ability on the instrument is of a good standard so that you can make pleasant sounds. Point number 9, fretboard knowledge. This is probably the absolute biggest thing that's holding guitar players back. They don't work on this at all. They don't really think about fretboard knowledge because it's really boring to learn scales and things like this. The problem is, if you've got no fretboard knowledge, you've got no chance of ever being able to play improvised solos or anything like that. So for example, most guitar players will absolutely need to know the 5 shapes of the minor pentatonic scale. Most guitar players that I've talked to over the years will say when they take a lesson with me, that is the absolute biggest game changer that they learn from coming to see a guitar teacher. Now, although that information is widely available on the internet, like I say, most people are overlooking that. So when you pick up your guitar to go and practice, make fretboard knowledge a part of your routine. So if you're playing for 30 minutes and that is your practice, I would dedicate 10 minutes at the beginning of the practice to making sure you've got your fretboard down. Now here's a really, really good exercise that you could do. So let's say you're playing in A minor. What I would do first is just run through the 5 shapes of A minor. So go, can I play A minor pentatonic shape 1, which looks like this? Then move that immediately up to shape 2, which looks like this. Shape 3. Shape 4. shape 5, and then you would be back up to your octave position, so you're in shape 1 again. Now, I've met a lot of guitar players that know those 5 shapes. I've also met many, many more that don't know those 5 shapes. Most people get stuck at shape 1. Once you know those 5 shapes, a really, really important thing to do for warming up your knowledge of the instrument, but also warming up your mind and getting comfortable at moving up and down and in and out of the guitar, is to do an exercise where you run one shape and then descend the next. So I'm going to do that now. So as I start playing, I'm ascending shape 1, I'll descend shape 2, ascend shape 3, descend shape 4, ascend shape 5, descend shape 1 and come back on myself. So up shape 5, down 4, up 3, down 2, and now I'm back to where I started on the guitar. Now if you want to see a tabbed reference of that kind of exercise, I've put all of that sort of stuff in my books, also in my premium courses as well, where the links are in the description. And I do talk about all of that stuff in my free course as well if you want to just get going on that one, but obviously the other products that I have just go into much more detail. Point number 10, I'll make this quick, but it's avoiding theory. Most guitar players want to avoid theory, and that is because they find it boring and heavy and all of that stuff. But when you're limited with your time and you want to just put on a backing track and just jam, I understand that when you've only got 20 minutes to practice, that's the thing that you want to do, and that's fine. But if the backing track says a Dorian backing track and you don't know what that even means, you're not going to be able to play over it. So again, let's say that you've taken a half an hour period out of your day that you're going to play the guitar. Make 10 minutes about jamming over that track. Make 10 minutes all about working on your technique and fretboard knowledge and stuff like that. So run those pentatonic shapes, try and run the Dorian shapes in those 5 positions as well. But spend 10 minutes just doing some online research, reading a book or anything like that about the theory side and understanding what it means. If you do that on a daily basis 4 or 5 times a week, over the course of a year or 2 years or whatever, you'll make massive progress. Point number 11 is that we have too many distractions in our lives these days. Instagram's popping off, TikTok's popping off, there's YouTube notifications, Netflix is trying to get you to go and watch that, Amazon Prime wants you to go and watch that. It's endless. So what you need is to give yourself a space, a dedicated space where there are no distractions. Now I know that I'm in a fortunate position where I have a dedicated space in my house which is a home studio because I'm a guitar teacher. I know that not everybody has that, but you will have a space if it's just your bedroom, if it's your conservatory, if it's your kitchen table. Go and sit somewhere where there is no one else, no wife, no kids, no husband, no dog, no cat, anything to distract you. Put your phone into do not disturb so that you're not getting notifications from all your social media, no one's texting you and all of that, and you can sit down and work on your goal. Now another way that I like to look at doing this is book in an appointment slot for yourself. So if you are a busy working professional and you do Zoom calls and you're on Teams meetings and all of that stuff, you won't miss a meeting for work because it's work. You won't miss an appointment for the kids because you have to take them to football training or you have to go to parents' evening. You won't miss an appointment with the wife or the husband because that gets you more grief than anything in the world. But you will miss an appointment for you, and that's the wrong way to look at it. What you have to do is block out that time and say, 8 o'clock at night, I'm going to go and practice my guitar for half an hour. And once you already have all of these plans in motion about what you're going to work on, you're going to go and sit there with structure and logic, knowing exactly what you're going to do, and then you just work on it for half an hour straight. Another distraction which is absolutely killing guitar players' progress, and I see this all the time, is gear videos. All I ever see when people are coming in here to talk to me and they show me these forums that they're in, or they show me, oh, have you seen this video about this or whatever? They talk about gear, they talk about gear, they talk about gear. Now don't get me wrong, I own plenty of guitar gear. I've got loads of guitars, I've got a quad Cortex, I've got a few different amps, I've got a bunch of pedals down here. I'm not looking for anything else. I'm not looking at gear, I'm not doing the research on that. If I'm going to do some research, I'm doing some research about the playing, not about the gear. So if you are a struggling guitar player, looking at more gear is the most insane use of your time, because you probably can't afford the gear. Also as well, you're not going to be able to make use of the gear because you can't already play the way you want to play. So to look at gear is ridiculous. The worst distraction that you can possibly have. Point number 12. Beginner guitar players and even intermediate guitar players seem to only like learning songs. That will hold you back massively. That is almost like, once you've got a few favourite songs, even when you've got a set list, keep those songs for some fun, something that you can keep playing over so that you're enjoying yourself, but don't just keep learning new songs. You need to learn things like the theory, the scales, the technique to push you to a higher level. If that's what you want to do, if you're quite happy with those songs, then you don't need to push forward. But then, to be quite honest, if that's only what you want to achieve, you probably wouldn't be watching a video like this. You're only watching this video because you want to get better. If you want to get better, you need to do more than learn some songs. Point number 13, this is something that's very detrimental to your practice, is not recording yourself. So when you start listening to your own playing, you'll start to understand more of what your problems are. When you can understand what your problems are, again, it's easier to devise outside of the time that you have the guitar what it is that you need to work on, so that when you do go to practice and you have that limited amount of time, again, you'll know exactly what to work on. These days, you don't have to do super high quality level recordings. You could just get your phone out, put that on the side, record yourself playing something, watch that back and go, oh, I'm out of time here, my technique doesn't look very good here, etc. Like, you've not got the right picking angle, your fretting hand doesn't look good, etc. If you just watch what's going on with your own playing, it will help you massively. Point number 14 is fear of making mistakes. If you are afraid of getting things wrong when you're going to practice, it actually puts you off. What you need to be very aware of is that everybody makes mistakes. It seems like in this online world that we live in now that everyone that plays guitar, every man and his dog, is an amazing player. Well, actually it's not the case. They're just very clever at editing things, and what they show you is what they want you to see, which is obviously the mistakes are all being cut out. Mistakes are going to happen, they're inevitable. Being afraid of all of that is actually stopping you from progressing. So don't sit there worrying about cocking things up, just go and play the guitar. Point number 15 is having no balance to your practice. So what a lot of guitar players are doing when they have the spare time to go and practice is they're just noodling, okay? They'll sit there on the sofa noodling away on the guitar, and what you need to do if you want to get better is have a balancing act of what I class as the 3 key areas of all modern guitar playing, which is fretboard knowledge, technique, developing vocabulary. So what I want to show you here is a copy of the actual practice routine that I used when I was about 17 and I really decided that I wanted to get crazy good at playing the guitar. So for one thing, I actually had a lot of time. When you're 17, you've got more time to practice than you'll ever have. I used to take a guitar playing weekend, so I would practice for 5 days out of 7. Hence you can see I've got my days labelled out here, and what I used to do is I used to just put an X in the box so that I would know that I've practiced the things that I've said that I used to do. In fact, in the early days I wouldn't have done something as neat and tidy as this. I used to just do it on a lined piece of paper. It doesn't have to be fancy. So I wanted to work on certain technical areas. Then I wanted to work on going through the real books and getting my rhythm playing down. And then I wanted to be able to work on playing through some pieces and fretboard skills and things like this. So I divided up my time that in terms of technique, I wanted to work on legato, alternate picking, economy picking, and sweep picking, okay? I wasn't working on any tapping at the time. I would have built that in at a later time. But what I was doing specifically is playing for 30 minutes in each area. And then what I've written out here, high intensity guitar technique, legato exercises. So these are the books that I wrote way back in about 10 years ago. Pick 6 examples, play for 5 minutes each at top speed. This was kind of like a thing that I could do for my maintenance. All of my books and the courses and everything that I have at Cutting Edge Guitar have all been based on the materials that I used for myself in order for me to get to where I wanted to be as a guitar player. So that's what's all in all of this stuff here. Then of course, if I moved down to what I wanted to work on, looking at the real books was for sight reading, playing through the chords and arpeggiating them. I was really interested at the time about being able to play through interesting harmony and understanding all of that stuff. So I've built that into my routine. Reading was a real problem for me, and also at a young age I wanted to work in pit bands and start doing some actual gigging as putting what you've learned in all the lessons and at music college and stuff into practice, so I could go and do some pro gigs. So I needed to be reading and all of that. Transcribing, just a way to get better at almost everything, but it is time consuming. Now, musical repertoire, playing through your favourite songs, pieces you're learning, band material, exam material, all of that sort of stuff. And the fretboard skills, play through all the scales, arpeggios, triads and other musical devices in every key possible for that 1 hour. What this made was a total practice time for me of 5 hours a day. Now, don't have a heart attack about the fact that I'm saying that I was practicing for 5 hours a day. I knew as a young guy that I wanted to be a professional musician, and I knew that that was what it was going to take. But what I'm showing you there is the balance of all of the things that I had. I didn't just practice my legato chops all day, every day. I was working on lots of different things to make me a more rounded musician. Now again, if that's the sort of thing that you want to achieve with your music, you want to be able to play more than one thing, you can take those kind of ideas that I've put in there and you can pro-rata it down so that you've got, 10 minutes work on all of the different areas that you're looking at. If you've got 6 areas you've picked and you work on them for 10 minutes a day, you've done an hour's practice, and then you're going to move forward and you're going to get results. The only thing with the more you practice, the more time that you do it, you're going to get fast, you're going to get better quicker. That's basically it. Okay, point number 16, perfectionism. I see a lot of people that will be completely unwilling to move on because they're so fixated on they need to be perfect before they can move on to the next thing. And unfortunately, perfection quite often equals paralysis. So a person that comes to mind, I won't use any names, but I had a student who was a pretty good student, very diligent guy, but he got stuck on a tune at what I would call my grade 2 level. So in my cutting edge guitar programs, I've kind of aligned my beginner to intermediate things with what the traditional graded guitar system looks like. He got stuck at basically grade 2 and could see, there's some songs coming up that look really fun and I want to get into starting to play lead guitar and do this and do that. But he was completely unwilling to move past a grade 2 song until he could play it absolutely perfectly. Now, even though as his teacher, I gave him permission. I was like, I think you can play this kind of well enough. Let's move on now. He wouldn't do it. And that led to him getting completely stuck and very, very frustrated of being stuck in that area. So don't be afraid to push on to new things. You can always revisit something later and polish it up. So you don't want to effectively put yourself off of doing your practice because perfection equals paralysis. Now, point 17, something that I do see on the flip side of some other points that we've talked about earlier is there's some people that only want to play songs. There are other people that are just obsessed with playing exercises and building their speed with the metronome. But what they're overlooking is improvisation, putting on some backing tracks and developing vocabulary with the skills that they've built. So don't overlook developing vocabulary, because when you can turn your skills into music, it'll make you have much more fun. And then what you can do is you can put on a backing track or something like that, rip through your vocabulary, and then in only 10 minutes of playing with a backing track, you've actually covered a lot of ground in terms of fretboard knowledge and technique and the musicality, so that instead of looking at that going, I'd need to practice those 3 areas for 10 minutes a piece and play for half an hour, you can cover it all in 10 minutes just by getting to a point where you can jam competently. Point number 18, this is a mental area that you need to get past, is comparing yourself to other people. This quite often puts you off of wanting to go and do your practice because you're thinking about the people that you're seeing online, you're thinking about all these other guitar players, you think that you're not worthy of going to go and pick up your guitar because you just feel, I'm never going to be any good, these guys are so far ahead of me, I could never possibly catch up. And once upon a time, they were all where you are right now. What they do is they just put all of those distractions to one side, they go and practice, and they go and get results. So don't compare yourself to other people. Point 19 is a lack of accountability and direction. So most people that are probably watching this video right now are self-taught guitar players that have done all of the research into what kind of guitar they want, what kind of amp they want, what kind of pedals that they want, and then they go off thinking, now how the hell do I get good at playing the guitar? Now, without accountability and direction, you're probably always going to struggle. Yes, there have been some unbelievably great guitar players that were self-taught. In actual fact, many of your favourite guitar players were probably self-taught. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, they came from a time where there was no effective guitar teaching available, and also, even if there was, they probably weren't able to afford it. Also, there was far less distraction back then, so they didn't necessarily need to be held accountable. The guitar was the only fun thing that they had in their lives, and they would just go and spend all their time doing that because they didn't have a PlayStation, an Instagram, and everyone texting them 6 million times a day asking them to go to the pub or go and play football or something else. So if you're really struggling with the fact that you're just not getting the progress that you want and you don't know what to do with your time, you need some accountability. So there are several ways that you can get that into your life right now. Firstly, you can grab my free course in the link in the description. Now, what I do with my free course is I don't just give you a course and let you go off and just be like, okay, there you go. I will email you steps that show you what lesson you should be doing, how you go and get it, so there's accountability built into that one. As I said earlier, if you've been following me for quite some time and you've been through the free course and you're ready to go and get some massive progress, a huge discount available on my entire course library right now. The link is also below. Third and finally, the absolute best way to get accountability is to take one-to-one guitar lessons with an actual guitar teacher. At the time of recording this video, I have a few slots and there is a way to apply for that at the link in the description. If you're watching this video 6 months from now, I've got no idea if I have availability, so you'll just have to get in touch with me if that's something that you're interested in. The last point in this video, point number 20, is that you believe that you are too busy to get good at guitar. And unfortunately, that is just not true. Every single one of us gets the same 24 hours in a day. Yes, you'll have to go to work. Yes, you probably have a family. Yes, you probably have chores to do around the house. Yes, you probably want to go to the gym. All of the rest of it. But if you can't find the time every day, or at least 4 or 5 days out of 7 to play the guitar, realistically, you probably just don't want to play the guitar that badly. Something that you can do, quite honestly, if you really are interested in getting to the point where you can play to an effective standard, is look at all of the things that you're doing in your weekly schedule right now and look at where you're wasting time. You probably spend far too much time on social media, scrolling through Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Facebook, keeping tabs on what your ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend used to do. All of that is a pointless waste of time. Another area that people struggle with, and as a guitar teacher, I speak to loads and loads of people throughout the week, and they'll all say to me the same sort of thing. Oh, I've been so busy, man. I was never going to be able to get any guitar playing in the past week. Oh, it's just horrendous. I've got all this, I've got all that kind of... And I'll say to them in a jokey kind of way, seen that new show on Netflix? I don't even know what's new on Netflix because I don't really watch too much TV, obviously. If you say to them, oh, have you seen that new show on Netflix? And I go, oh, which one? And I'm like, oh, I can't remember what it's called, And they go, oh, we're watching a few series at the moment. And you're like, oh, aren't you the same guy that just told me a minute ago that you don't have time to play the guitar? You've now all of a sudden found about 5 or 6 hours a week to sit in front of Netflix. Then of course the retort to that will always be something along the lines of, oh yeah, but I do that with my wife, or I do it with my husband, or all that sort of thing, whatever. Well, realistically, those people, if they care about you, they'll let you go and practice. Most of my practice is done between the hours of 10 o'clock at night and midnight, because that's when I'll finish teaching, my wife's already in bed, that's when there's some free time. And again, on that front, people will say to you, oh, but I need to sleep for 10 hours, otherwise I'm not functioning or whatever. Now, one of my favourite idols who's not a guitar player is Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think he's just one of the funniest guys. Not only that, but his work ethic is absolutely second to none. And on that point, he always says to people, will just sleep faster. As comical as that is, the point is this: you can either get up an hour earlier or you can go to bed an hour later, and you can just find the time where you need to. So guys, that's it for this video. If you want to get involved with the free course, or you're ready to go straight to the premium courses, you want to take a lesson with me, or if you want to get the books in print, digital, whatever, all of the links are in the description box below. Or if you're now super motivated to go and do some practice and you want to watch a lesson from me, it's going to show you some really valuable things that you can go and practice right now. YouTube has probably just popped up a lesson that's going to be super valuable for you somewhere on the screen right about now. So you can watch that with your guitar, go and do some serious practice.